Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday morning service. So this morning's message is wash one another's feet. You may say that this is a two-part series sermon on Jesus washing of the disciples' feet. So I'd like to start with bringing back some of the conversation we had last Sunday. And I think the best way of doing it is to ask us how dirty our feet can be. We've talked about it. This time, however, I have some specific numbers to add on to that. I've looked at a couple of recent studies, and they say that our feet, just by walking outside and getting around, can carry 400,000 bacteria. It won't actually be our feet getting that amount of bacteria because we put our shoes on, but it says to the same effect about how much our feet, the lowest part of our body, can attract things just through walking in the street. There was another recent study that reports a swap of the bottom of shoes shows that 99% of the shoes have fecal matters. It's actually interesting how dirty our feet or our shoes can be. It was worse than I thought, and I'm not trying to scare you. One of the ideas from last week about our feet is that they are situated right next to the ground. They can get dirty easily. And yet, the story of Jesus washing the disciples' feet is not necessarily pointing out how dirty their feet and our feet can be, and that therefore our feet must be washed. No, that's not the message. The message is that our natural life is like our feet that can get dirty and filthy just by being there and living in the world. Think about it. Our natural life is like our feet. The way we walk on the earth or on the ground is like the way we engage with the world on a daily basis and on an hourly basis. In reality, the world out there, which is outside of our house, outside of our spiritual home here in the church, that's where we spend a lot of time, a lot of our time. We need to go to school. We need to go to work. We need to mingle with people. We need to deal with situations that aren't really set up or suitable for our true Christian or new church mindset. But whether we like it or not, that's where we are bound. So we'll have or see a mass of earthly, worldly ideas and behaviors clinging to our life and rubbing off on us. And that part of our natural life is the part that the Lord desired and desires to wash from us. That is the message from his washing of the disciples' feet. It's a bit long recap, but I think it's really important to wrap our head around again why the Lord had to wash their feet, not their heads or their hands. And we can understand what it can mean to us. So with that in mind, we can move on to our next part of washing one another's feet. And the message for this morning is clear, crystal clear. The Lord showed and set the perfect example. He kneeled on the floor and washed their feet one by one. And it's so powerful and moving to look at the Lord humbly serve them on his knees. Back in those days, the act of washing someone else's feet was a job of a servant. If we live in that era, and if we could afford a servant, then the servant, he or she, would wash our feet for us when we return home from traveling. See how that would work. But it was the Lord himself who did for the disciples as if he were their servant, when he was not. He was their teacher and the Lord. But because he set that example by himself, now there's no other way around for us to say and do otherwise. He just locked it in. We are asked to be a servant to one another and wash one another's feet. Humbly. And yet we can't limit the Lord's saying to simply our external humility. As you know, after service, we'll literally try to wash one another's feet. Everything is set up outside, so we'll be trying. And I wish we don't take it as merely superficial. Our attitude may be like, all right, I'll be doing it. Pastor said so. It's part of the service, right? But I don't think that's what the Lord meant. I don't think that attitude is the example that the Lord has set by him washing the dirt of his disciples' feet on his knees. Besides, it can't just be the filth of one another's feet that we are asked to wash. When we look at dirt or the like in one another's feet, we aren't just seeing that physical dirt. Rather, we can think that we are seeing their and our own flaws and mistakes. Whether we want or not, all of us will have them. We'll carry them, as it were, on our feet from our natural life. And the dirt in our feet, that dirt, the things that we look at from one another's feet, is the reminder that our natural life naturally will attract on ourselves things that are messy. We'll have them. We have our own flaws and mistakes. Just like a fallout of our daily engagement with the world. And the example that the Lord set and asked us touches on that level of our life. The feet washing boils down to two things. First one, forgiveness. Reading for this morning from the teachings of the New Church directly says that the act of washing one another's feet is an act of love towards a neighbor. And it goes on to say that washing the filth off others' feet with water, that act, that practice symbolically captures an idea of our trying to forgive others' flaws and mistakes. We can ask for ourselves then, what does it look like? The Arcana passage offers this. We do not dwell on or reflect on evils of another person. We may spot some flaws that are obvious, like sticky, stinky, blackish, something from one another. What we are told here is we don't necessarily point it out. We don't poke around that issue. Rather, we can try to excuse it. And I know that can't work out every time. I know. There are some other times when some other measure is needed. But at least we are told that we can try to make it go away from our side. And we do that by not dwelling on it, not reflecting on what that person did wrong or what has gone wrong with that. The feet washing also boils down to our humility. We are not blindly forgiving or excusing others' flaws just because we are so told. No, we do it, or we are doing it because we humbly recognize that our weakness and our wickedness can come forth from us, from every one of us, even when we have not intended. Nevertheless, we'll get exposed to bad things that will trigger bad part in us. We did not want it, we have not intended it, but things may still be messy. And that part is what we are asked to excuse from one another. It comes with our humble recognition that that is the part of our human experiences. We can accept that we all can have that kind of dirt, and it is that humility that lures us on our knees to willingly wash one another's feet, which is powerful. As I've been working on this topic for 2 weeks, it came across to me that the Lord's command of washing one another's feet seems to be a practice, especially for community and family. It's clear from Jesus saying, "Do it to one another." It becomes clearer when we think about the fact that the Lord asked and asks His disciples to do so among themselves, then who are His disciples. When we try to follow the Lord and live by His teachings, we are one of His disciples. I mean, I don't imagine that the Lord would say, "You over there aren't part of this practice because you are not one of my disciples, but you are part of it because you are." He doesn't draw a line with that. However, I think it's safe to say that feet washing is a specially offered thing for those who try to follow Him and live by His teachings, as an encouragement, as support among us. We may even say that it's part of our fellowship, if you will. Sometimes following the Lord in the narrow path can be lonely. We impose on ourselves a different set of rules and spiritual principles that other people may not bother to do. And I imagine us to try to become a better person in the Lord's way, and we try, and at times, again, when we try hard, there are still things that will cling to us that we have not yet recognized and not have shaken off of us. And they are sometimes hard to notice. It's not easy to flip our feet around and wash them clean. It's hard to do that. So in a way, washing one another's feet may be similar to scratching one another's back, because you can't do it for yourself. What would the Lord see from us when we try to follow Him as His disciples? I imagine that the Lord would want us to support each other, because we are on the path together. And we deserve and need care and support from one another. Maybe is that my sentimental reading of the Lord's command? But I think there's some truth in it. look after each other, be gentler with each other, especially when others have shown flaws and mistakes that they did not intend on. We can excuse those, not dwelling on them, and not thinking too much on them. Right after service, we are going to do the feet washing. We may find it embarrassing and awkward to an extent, and I would say that's part of it. And I want all of us to know that this act or practice in the heart of it calls for our courage. I'll admit that. It calls for courage to let our flaws be seen by one another. We put out our bare feet so that dirt in them can be seen and washed by others. And that practice calls for our willingness to accept that we have things in us and with us that aren't so clean yet. It calls for our recognition that all of us have some filth in our feet. And when we see that flaw, that dirt in someone's feet, we know what we can do. We can remove it from our sight, again, by not dwelling on it. But at the same time, trusting that the person is working on it and will be getting around to it. I do think that's what we can do as a congregation, as a family, as a part of our fellowship. That's our feet washing work for one another that we are asked by the Lord and by His living example. And we can remember that it is an act of loving and supporting one another so that in that support we may continue to follow the Lord in our discipleship, in living by His word and His teachings. Amen.